Good afternoon, everyone. This is Dawn Garcia. I'm sitting in lovely Tucson, Arizona, where everyone can now be jealous if you're not in the Southwest, as opposed to feeling sorry for me because it's so hot. And I am the incoming president-elect for the American Institute of Professional Geologists. This afternoon, we're very happy to have Matt Rhoades and Aaron Johnson as our speakers. These are both folks who have been on our town halls in the past. So it will be nice to hear an update from them, to hear what's been happening since we last heard from them. Matt is our current president and Aaron is our executive director. Let me give you just a couple of pointers about how this meeting will run. We are going to make this two separate presentations by Matt and followed by Aaron, and then there'll be about 20 minutes for discussion. I encourage everyone to use the chat function to throw questions into the chat as you're thinking of them. And there'll also be an opportunity at the end that people can raise their hand, gesture, turn on your camera, whatever is the best method for you, and ask a question that way. So Matt, would you please introduce yourself, and you get to have the floor for the first 20 minutes.
Wow, 20 minutes of listening to me yammer away. Thank you all very much for showing up. I really do appreciate it. My name is Matt Rhoades. I'm a consulting geologist. This has been my year of service to you folks as the president of the Institute. It's really been fun. It's been a great learning experience. I only have 5 or 6 weeks left. Still a couple of more functions to perform. One more conference that I'm aware of, and bada boom, bada bing. Then I'll be past president. And I'll still be going to all the conferences and still be seeing you folks, hopefully on a quarterly basis, wherever we are. But very much looking forward to that. And I'm not going to wander off too far, that's for sure. What I'd like to do is kind of recount what we've been doing, what I've been doing, and the executive committee's been doing since our annual meeting was held in Marquette, Michigan, Upper Peninsula. The annual trip, we had a lot of folks show up for that who the primary driver for a lot of folks was they had not been in that country up there before. I had never been myself and was really looking forward to it because I'd heard great stories about it. Not just the scenery and everything else, but smoking hot geology. Really, they got great rocks up there. And proof of that is the simple fact that I had to spend $85 to the post office to get all my rock samples shipped home. And when you have banded iron formation and copper nickel ore samples, they're not cheap to send. And even the guy who ran the post office in downtown Marquette asked me, "Wow, what do you got in these rocks?" I said, "That's exactly what I've got in them." So it's a big success when you're getting a lot of real high quality samples and neat stuff. So that was a great trip, great field trips, really neat mine tours, stuff I hadn't seen before, and I don't know when I'll ever see it before ever again. And the simple, really neat samples of pentlandite, I didn't even know what it was. And I'm holding a whole bunch of them in my hand. And I thought, oh, this is marcasite or pyrite or something like that. No, pentlandite. That was a new one for me. I'd never even been tested on it before. So it was a fun trip. A good time was had by all. Like I do with a lot of these trips, I always try and tack on a couple of days before and a couple of days after. And I was very much rewarded for doing that. And the whole thing, very good attendance, really good numbers that were put up from the conference, and great preparation by the folks in Michigan, the team up there. So with the state section, AIPG. So Marquette was a blowout success, and we hope to emulate that, repeat that again and again and again going forward. Lots of student participation, and it was fun. After Marquette, I went to the AEG conference in Las Vegas. I'm not a Las Vegas person, and it's not part of my DNA. But the interesting thing about it is, and a compelling reason for going to Las Vegas is, apart from the conference I was attending, they got 2 fantastic parks right outside of that town. Just to the east of it is Valley of Fire State Park. which has spectacular geology. And just to the west of it, it has Red Rock Canyon, like outdoor recreation area or something like that. Also, the Aztec sandstone with a big keystone thrust over it. Spectacular scenery, really, really neat stuff. Got a lot of desert tortoise habitat, neat stuff, but good stuff to see outside of town. Unfortunately, I was the conference. Well, it was held at the Planet Hollywood casino hotel right down on the strip, and was very well attended. A lot of folks from Southern Cal, well, folks from all over the country, but a lot of folks from Southern California, and a lot of folks who are also AIPG members, CPGs. Um, Also belong to AEG. I'm one of them. John Price is one of them. He's on this call. There were several people who walked up to me and said, "Oh, I know who you are. I know who AIPG is. I've been a member for 20 years." And John Price, I think at one time or another has been president of both. But they're an organization. They look like us. They walk like us. They talk like this. The E is for environmental and engineering geology, so that's their domain. But a very good. And the reason we go there primarily is to build a lot of synergy with the group, but also with the people, and see if there aren't recruiting opportunities, because we want to appeal to working professionals, and the room's full of them. So in marketing, we call that a target rich environment, but it was just a good dynamic, and we had great discussions. And we think we'll be, from that specific conference, we're working on establishing a new student chapter in UC Pomona in Southern California, with a working professional who's also an adjunct prof there. But they're very eager to, and in fact, all the paperwork's out and in the mix right now to have those folks join our ranks. So after the AEG conference in Las Vegas, I went on a field trip with the University of Illinois geology department down to we used to always call it the Ozarks in southeastern Missouri, but down to the St. Francis Mountains. Great opportunity for Midwest geology. Well, anybody who grew up out on the Craton knows the geology is not all that exciting. And I grew up in an area that was just nothing but limestone and shale cyclothem. So you get a fill of that in no time. But when you get down to that part of the world, very, very old mountain range, and lots of like real true red granites, ignimbrites, rhyolites, really neat stuff. And so that was a camp out thing at Johnson Shut-in State Park, but Elephant Rock State Park, and a bunch of different road cuts and rail cuts and things that we went to go see. And that's a good trip, because both Vanderbilt University and Washington University out of St. Louis were doing the same field trip while we were there, pulling up at the same road cuts that we're walking through Elephant Rock State Park, same time we're there. So there's good geology when it has a very nice Midwestern draw. So that was a great trip. After that, I ended up going to the GSA, which this year was held in at the convention center in downtown Denver, and that's just a sea of humanity, huge turnout. Really great opportunities to interact with a slew of people, very heavily attended, lots of support for booth duty, and just being in the mix. And honestly, I'm not a GSA person. I haven't been to GSA in decades. And I always characterize it as a lot of academics and a lot of grad students running around with resumes. That's still true. However, I've never had our booth absolutely mobbed. And I mean, I think it's an honest characterization. Aaron was there, where you have 30 students right there waiting to fill out the paperwork. And I might, you have 2 or 3 conversations at a time, but not like that. I was really impressed. And I told him, as soon as you can, drop your .edu email address and get a real Gmail account with an address you can live with for the next 40 years, so we can stay in touch. But that went really well. That was that I consider that just a huge success. A lot of folks there, very well supported. Dorothy was there. Dorothy Combs was there for the whole thing, and just I think that one goes over in the win column, and I kind of rethink my opinion about where we are with GSA. It just worked out very serendipitously that it was in downtown Denver. GSA is based up in Boulder. We're up on the north end of town, and so there's a lot of just characteristic draw to Denver. A lot of A lot of geologists in Denver, Lord knows. And then we had a meeting just on the first Friday of this month, the 4th, in St. Louis. And there was a reason for having the St. Louis meeting. Dawn, who works for Golder, was able to secure their conference room to support a meeting that was literally what 100 yards from the hotel where we were staying, the one of the Drury Inns on the south end of town. But the the main reason, at least to my mind, was for going is Todd McFarland, who's a past president and runs the show for what used to be Wood and now is WSP in Nashville, has a very strong relationship with Doe Run. And Doe Run is the mining company that's operating the just world-class lead zinc mines down in the Viburnum Trend, down in the Ozarks, down in the St. Francis Mountains. And the opportunity to go underground at an operation like that really is, to my way of thinking, a once in a lifetime opportunity, although I had been underground there once before in 1980. Room and pillar mining. In some places, those ceilings in there are 60 feet high. The pillars are 100 feet around, 100 feet in diameter. And it's far and away the fastest I've ever driven underground. We were in a little ATV, and Adam and Sarah were in the back seat. It's like 2 in front, 3 in back. It's got a little pickup bed on the back. And we were easily moving at 50 miles an hour underground, easily. And I told the guy that's driving, I've never moved this fast underground. We're at about 1,000 feet. And he says, well, we got 2 miles to our next stop. So we got to get on it at 2 miles. Well, there's over 300 miles underground there. This is, they've been mining in that region for over 100 years. And he was telling us that the haul trucks, which are not huge, they're not the big ones like you see in a surface operation, like an open pit, but they're big articulating Volvo trucks. From the working face to the primary crusher underground was 6 miles one way. I think 6 miles, that's impossible. He goes, a haul truck driver per shift can easily drive over 300 miles per shift underground. I'm like, the economies of scale were mind numbing. And then we got a complete tour of the mill. They had people with us every step of the way. It was limited to 30. I think we had a dozen maybe, or 11 or 12, something like that on the trip. It was a huge success. I brought out a 40-pound backpack full of really good samples. And I saw people were waving around stuff underground like, wow, look at that, look at that. And galena, sphalerite, marcasite, pyrite, really, really neat samples, and a great trip. They provided pizzas for lunch, gave us all the health and safety gear we needed, and a kind of a MSHA crash course for an hour before we went underground of, what to do, where to go, what we'll see, etc. Very good geology lecture that was very, very thorough. Super accommodating. And Chris Hogan is the chief geologist there. He's also a CPG, and in every way, shape, and form, very much an accomplished professional. But that was a great trip. After we got back, and it's about 2.5 hours south of St. Louis. After we got back to St. Louis, the next day we had a working session in a conference room. We're we're going through the details of the handbook, the bylaws, everything else that we've got kind of dangling participles out there, because those need to be reviewed and refreshed every few years, we know. Unfortunately, the right people to have in the room were all there. Dawn was there, Sarah Pearson, Adam, people who know the book inside and out. I guess the only other person who was really missing would have been David Abbott, because he's got it committed to memory. So it was very good to have that working group. Then we got together. The Missouri section had their annual or quarter. I think it was their annual, wasn't it? They, at any rate, they had a meeting same day, and so we all got together at a brew pub that evening, and got to get in the mix with. And they brought some very young people with them, brand new CPGs. But the whole thing went really well. Interestingly enough, for the trip to St. Louis, we had people there from Michigan, Illinois, certainly Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and I don't know where else, but folks literally came from all around the country when they saw the opportunity to go underground at an operation like that. It was just really, really neat and very much time well spent. Since that time, we're still we're still wrestling around with what we're doing with the the handbook, the guidebook for the executive committee. We've got stuff to. We have one more meeting before the year is out, and we're looking somewhere around the 10th. We're going to have a transition meeting for all the new folks that are coming on board and explaining what we've been doing, how what the reasonable and rational expectations are for the new folks coming in. And with regards to the transition, I put this up in a newsletter, my president's letter in the last TPG, but I'd like to emphasize the point that with Dawn coming in, the past president was Nancy Wolverson. And I got to really MC the award ceremony up in Marquette. Overwhelmingly, we've got a very strong female participation. Overwhelmingly, the awards went to females. Overwhelmingly, the student body is females. All of our early career professionals have been females. This was the first time with our board we had a mother-daughter combination on the board. And Shauna's on the call, the president-elect, who will follow Dawn as a female. And so I'd like to emphasize, as a fat, old, bald, white guy, that things are changing. And I think they're changing very much for the better with a whole new dynamic and a different mix of our demographic and what we look like and how we walk and talk. I think it's a healthy thing. I think it's very, very positive and very much on the up and up. So I think that's net is a very positive thing to report. And same thing underground when we're down in the Ozarks. A lot of females on that trip. It worked out really well. So where am I on the clock? I can't even see time-wise. Oh, I'm at 17 minutes, right? I don't have a whole lot more to wag on about, and you probably wouldn't want to hear any more from me, but if you can save it for the Q&A or anything in the chat, I'd love to be in the mix on that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Matt.
Sure.
Appreciate all those comments and the insight of your visits to various sections and places.
Yeah.
Aaron is our next speaker. Aaron's our executive director, and he's going to give us a little bit of an update on what he's been doing, some of his priorities, and also what he's got planned for the future.
Well, thank you, Don, and thanks everyone for coming. I appreciate that today. What I thought I might do is give you just a little bit of an update on where we are, kind of how AIPG sits in the grand scheme of things, and then talk about some of the things that we're really going to be working on. One of the first things to talk about is our annual meeting. The meeting in Marquette was spectacular. I know we could go on and on about it, but I really wanted to give a lot of credit to the organizing committee, the Michigan section, for all of the work they did. It was brilliantly done. Chris Lillick and the group of volunteers that are helping to do some of the organizational work, they did a fabulous job. And then, of course, without Wendy, Kathy in the office, we never could have gotten that done. So I wanted to make sure I acknowledge that. And then to let you know that the 60th anniversary event will be 2023 in Covington, Kentucky. And I expect it's going to be spectacular. You know, we're in a location there where the field trips can run the gamut from environmental to sedimentology, paleontology, and we're really not that far from some of the historically important mining districts. So I'm excited to see how that meeting comes together. A couple of other things maybe to talk about. I've really been doing a deep dive into our membership and renewal statistics, because this is the time of year when we really start to count on you to come back and to continue to support AIPG. And one of the things that I've learned is that our annual renewal rate averages about 94%, which in the association world is a really good number. One of the things that I'm finding when I talk to other association professionals is that anything above 90% is really good. Where we struggle in a couple of spots, one of the things we want to focus on is making that transition from student member to early career professional member and then on to CPG, and how we make that more efficient, how we retain more of our student members. Because right now, only about 1 to 1.5% of the students that are members continue on to go directly to the early career professional membership. And so we want to bump that number up. We have seen some increases. So some of the things that we're doing are helping. but I think that's going to be one of our areas of focus. And of course, Don and Matt, you guys chime in anytime if something comes to mind as we talk about some of these things. I don't want it to seem as though it's just me doing all the leadership here, because we have a great leadership team in the three presidents that really work together to try to get some of this done. We're also going to focus a little more on trying to provide better value for your membership. I can't announce anything yet, but I am in talk with an equipment supplier to see if we can get a discount on some sort of traditional geological equipment. I expect a call back from them next week to see if we can't start to hammer something out. And the interesting thing about this discount is that it would be company-wide. So if you are the chief geologist at your company and you want to purchase 10 or 15 of these items, the discount would apply to all 10 or 15, not just to the one you would buy. So it'll be a little different in terms of the discount program. Waiting to hear if we're going to be able to hammer that all out, but I'm very optimistic. So we're going to try to work on some more issues like that, where we can get you these nuts and bolts, immediately applicable benefits for your membership. The second thing we've really been working on is expanding our continuing education opportunities for you, for our members. I know many of you have been in on the Lunch and Earn series. We've had 3 primary webinars so far, one on the geology of the viburnum trend, which was timely considering we went to the trend, one on the economics of mine geology. That was Chris Hogan, who is at Doe Run, and then the last one by Greg Gosson on the kinds of things you need to know for SK 1300 for reporting. Next week on the 29th, we have Reno Prasacco, who will be giving a webinar that deals with the Canadian system and looks at reporting and resource estimation under Canadian instrument. That's NI 43101. Then in January, we've got Abani Samal, who's going to talk about the international nature of the mineral industry. And I'm lining up right now, hopefully for February. I've got 2 or 3 irons in the fire. We've got Doug Bartlett is in the pipeline. I don't know maybe what Doug will talk about yet. Don made an introduction for me with Craig Waldy. Craig and I corresponded this morning. So maybe Craig, and then AIPG member named Edwin Hale and I have been playing phone tag. So we have at least 3 more in the pipeline. And Matt, I've still got you on my radar. So next year, if you're thinking February would work for you, let's really start chatting about that so we can start getting that advertised. What I've found is there's a really big demand right now for continuing education related to the minerals portion of the raw materials base. And I think part of that is because as we see the energy transition beginning to occur, Matt, you and I have talked about it, Don, you and I have talked about it, there will be an expansion in the need for materials that we mine out of the ground. And they have to come from somewhere. I was at a meeting last week, and one of the things that I noticed, there was a statistic that came up, and it was that since 2000, every continent on the planet, save one, has increased its raw materials production. The United States is up 29% over 2000, Australia is up 144, Asia is up 129. The only continent that's decreased its production is Europe. So Europe is among the largest of raw materials consumers, but they're decreasing in terms of their mineral production. So I think there are going to be some opportunities there. And I think that the next step in this webinar series may be to start talking about the status of specific raw materials in the global market. So let's talk about what's going on with cobalt. Let's talk about nickel and nickel supplies, where the supplies and demands are. So I'll start working on that as well. And the other thing that came out of this is that we've had some interest from the BDG, and I cannot pronounce it because it's in German, but it's essentially the German version of AIPG. They really want to make these available to their members and to advertise. And so they're willing to advertise this for us as well. And then there's been some interest in the European Federation of Geologists. They would like to work together to put together something that have a bigger global feel. So I think there's room for growth in our Lunch and Earn series, and it's really starting to take off. If you have that expertise and you'd be interested in sharing that expertise in this online setting, it's about a 45-minute talk and then about a 15-minute Q&A afterward. please reach out to me, to Matt, to Dawn, and we'll get that in the pipeline because I think there's really an opportunity here for AIPG to lead when it comes to providing top quality continuing education in the raw materials sector. The other big thing that's going on at the national office right now is the transition to our new accountant. Many of you may have known Dick Matthews. Dick was our accountant for many years. He did a wonderful job until his health started to fail. And that put us a little bit behind the 8 ball. And I'm happy to report that AIPG is one tax return away from being current after really, really hard work by our new accountants, Jeff, Corey, and Sylvia. So they kind of have a team, and that way if somebody gets ill or if they're on vacation or if they get covered up by another project, we kind of still stay in the queue and moving forward. They've done a phenomenal job with that. And we should be, I'm hoping, first or second week of January, we should be current just in time for the next tax season to start. So I really wanted to make sure that everyone at AIPG knows that we've worked really diligently to get that all back to the level of quality work we expect. Our annual financial review is going on even as we speak, and then we'll transition into the full audit the next time around. So we do this every year. We either have a review or an audit, and it flip-flops. One year is an audit, the next year is a review. And that depends also on the accountant. So what happened when Dick got ill was some of the work product didn't get out in a timely fashion. And that put us a little bit further behind in getting the reviews done as quickly as we would like and the audits done as quickly as we would like. We also expect that to be back on track by probably May. We typically had the reviews and audits done in May or June of the year following. So the 2022 review would be due about June of 2023. So we'd have all that information for our members at the meetings in either June or July, and then at the annual meeting. The primary things that we really want to focus on next year, and I can't stress this enough, is our members are our best advertisements. You guys, the people that do the work, that interact with the professionals, you're the ones that convince your peers that AIPG is an organization that has value. I can say that. I can go to a meeting and say it. But a lot of times it gets viewed as me being the executive director, and I have a vested interest. It's when Matt goes. It's when Dawn goes. It's when John Fontana that I see is on and he's on mute. It's when John's at a meeting, or John Price, and you guys start to talk about the value AIPG has had over the course of your career. That's the best sales pitch. And so I think one of the things I'd really like to focus on next year is to really encourage all of our members in a meaningful way to share those experiences, but to talk to you guys about how that works for you, because you're in a work setting and we can't expect that you're going to be able to recruit while you're on the job if you're not in a position where the company's comfortable with that. So we have to think about how we do that. But I think that's a really important piece. I think the second thing is, as the executive committee develops our new strategic plan, and the national office will be involved, of course, but as that gets developed, it will be on us then to implement some strategies to try to bring that strategic plan into reality. So those will be a couple of our really big areas of focus. I think one of the other things that we did this year and we'll do hopefully a better job of next year is really considering what meetings are the places where AIPG really needs to be visible. We did a better job this year, and I think we saw some results at the AEMA meeting that we're getting ready to go to, and then at the meeting earlier in Reno, I think we got about half a dozen CPG applications. I was kind of shocked by GSA. Usually we maybe get one application from the GSA annual meeting. I think we got 3 CPG applications this year and about a half a dozen either early career professionals or professional members. So it was a really valuable meeting. But I think that's really going to be one of our areas of focus too. And I invite you as members, you know where some of these really high quality meetings are, you know where your colleagues go when they're seeking professional development. If there's a meeting out there that we haven't been attending or you haven't seen us talk about that you think we need to be going to, make sure and email me directly. I'll drop my email contact in the chat when I'm done speaking here as we get ready into the Q&A part, so that you have that and you can email that to me directly, and we'll put that on our list of meetings to consider and try to figure out how we get there and how we spread the word about the value of an AIPG membership, whether it's a professional membership or the CPG. I think the last area where I'd really like to focus next year is to think about how we, as what I think of as the professional organization for ethics and professionalism in the United States, how we lead when it comes to ethics and professionalism as an industry comes under pressure. Because I think what we're going to see is that over the next few years, there will be a pressure to provide more raw materials. And where there's a financial incentive or where there is work pressure, there's also the opportunity to make a mistake or to make an error in judgment that can compromise your ethics. And so I think that's going to be a place where over the next 3 to 5 years, we're really going to want to find a way to lead. And it's going to take people like Matt, like Adam, like Dawn, like Nancy, who have years of experience and who have worked in a broad array of different settings to really be able to help us have some of that guidance and to think about what does a best practices in reporting really look like? What does professional ethics in mining look like? Because it can be very specific. So I think we have some opportunities there as well. We certainly want to strengthen our relationship with the Association of American State Geologists. I saw that Missouri just hired a new state geologist. Her name is Carrie Bridges. Carrie and I went to grad school together, so I'll be twisting her arm a little bit to step in and join AIPG. But I think she's going to do a wonderful job. I've known Carrie now for 25 years, and I think she's going to do a really great job at the state survey over there. So we want to strengthen those relationships and, of course, maintain the relationships that we have built with other organizations. And that's going to include expanding our vision for what this memorandum of understanding with the Society of Mining Engineers can look like and what kind of benefits it can provide AIPG and SME, as well as strengthening those relationships with groups like the Society of Economic Geologists, the Geological Society of America, AEG, of course. I think we really want to work together on common initiatives. And with that in mind, I'll kind of mention the last initiative. Dawn really helped us get this started. It's the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. I was talking to the DEI, not really an officer, but the person who works mostly with DEI at the Institute of Geologists of Ireland, and with Brenda Lothian, who does some of the same work in France and Spain. And there's interest in thinking about how we approach diversity in an increasingly global marketplace. Because I think one of the things we're learning is, especially in the raw materials world, geologists are more portable and raw materials are increasingly being shipped globally. One of the things that I learned at a meeting last week is that of sort of the 15 critical raw materials that are most in demand, China is the leading processor, not the leading producer miner, but the leading processor of 13 of those 15 commodities. One commodity they produce 100% of, that's graphite, finished graphite, 100% of it comes out of China. And another one they produce 93% of in terms of the processed material. I forget what that was. It might have been rare earth elements. And if you look at mine production, 5 of the top 15 raw materials, China leads the world in production in. So I think we're going to have to address those potential supply bottlenecks and think about what professional responsibility and ethics will mean in that global marketplace. I think I'll stop there. I'd like to have plenty of time for Q&A, for conversation, so that you guys can ask me the questions that are on your mind or ask Matt the questions that are on your mind as well. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Folks, I haven't seen any questions or comments yet in the chat, but now's your opportunity. If you want to unmute yourself and ask a question or put on your camera and wave your hand.
Well, Matt, while we wait on people to put some questions into the chat, I have a question for you.
Sure.
If you were to give someone your 30-second elevator pitch on why AIPG has been really important for your career, what would it sound like?
Well, originally I would kind of talk to the intangibles. It's great networking opportunity, great opportunities for professional growth, great opportunities to attend really informative, valuable lectures and webinars, and Lord only knows what. But where the rubber meets the road, and I'll give you an excellent example. Very good friend of mine who's a very accomplished yet very young geologist was waiting on his CPG a part of last summer to get the actual nod that he got a CPG number, and he was one, because he was waiting on, as soon as he got that, he was getting a promotion and a pay raise. And the day he walked into his boss's office with that, they made him the chief geologist and he got a 15% pay raise. And so not only was he rooting for that CPG number to come in the door, but his wife and his in-laws were as well. And so when it comes down to, hard reasons of why to do this, you might just get along better professionally as you trundle along in your career if you've got those initials after your name. Engineers understand this implicitly. You have that PE after your name, nobody wonders what that is. People ask me a lot, what's a CPG? What is that? What's that about? And so, yeah, it's come down to dollars and cents. It's come down to people calling me because I am a CPG, wanting to know, hey, do you have available time? And could you look at this or look at that or visit us with? And so it has had tractable, hard dollar realities to it. But the opportunity to see great rocks and go to really neat places, I like that as well. So I'm sorry I overran my 30 seconds, but I can convert it into dollars and cents. I really can. People understand that.
It's interesting that you mentioned the letters behind your name. I was talking to a gentleman named Pavlos Tirologou. He's the external relations officer for the European Federation of Geologists, and he just applied for his CPG. He's got the EuroGeol title. He's a chartered geologist with GSL. And I said, why are you applying for your CPG when you have all this other stuff? And he said, it helps me get jobs. It helps me get contracts. People see the letters and they see that you're certified through multiple organizations, and it seems to matter. It may provide a competitive advantage.
I think it communicates that you're serious about your career, serious about, what you're doing. It's not for everybody, and I get that. Some people just want to get the bachelor's degree and go work in a lab or go work at some agency or work someplace where that's, they can pursue their hobbies and everything. That I get. But if you can communicate that you're in it, you're in the mix, your head's in it. And I'll give you one other plug for EFG. They have a great website, and you can get their news. It's called EFG News. EFG Newsweek comes out every week. It's authored by people all over Europe, but always really, really cool articles in there. It's worth some. It's free, and it's really worth getting and reading. That's very well done. The authors are always all over Europe. They're Italians and Spaniards and Brits and yada yada. So they're a good bunch. Obviously, a very bright bunch.
Great. Any other questions from the audience?
Well, one thing I'd like to plug while there's a little bit of airtime is, it would look like that if you look at what we've been doing, the coursework we're working at, and the direction we're taking, that we have something of a mining bias within the organization, and that's simply not the case. Most of us, a lot of us, have very strong environmental backgrounds, and we could lean on somebody like John Fontana to get in there and give us a presentation on all the stuff that he does, because he's very much in the mix on the environmental side. And we have so many people in our organization who are very strong in environmental consulting, environmental geology, hydrogeology, that we could just as easily put them in the mix on monthly, lunch and learn presentations as well. So we do that.
And we would love to.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. I'd be happy to do that. I was going to ask, what environmental meetings have we attended, that are on a national scale? I mostly go to more local ones, but do you think that would be worthwhile?
Yeah, AEG has the E is both environmental and engineering. Although they tend to be like engineering geologists and geotechnical. Well, they're not geotechnical engineers. They made
Yeah.
that point that that's a whole different group. But
Oh, okay.
that would be one for the national. And I know next year there are meetings in downtown Portland. And I just oh really Portland. Oh, wouldn't have put that on my bucket list, but that's where they had an obligation pre-pandemic to a hotel there that they had to go back, so they're going back next year.
Yeah,
But
and I
that'd
was
be
just going to
one.
follow up,
Yeah.
John, to say that the plan for the Lunch and Learn series is to kind of have an annual theme. And so the theme for this first year has been mining and minerals. But my idea for the next year was to think about water and to think about how we might address that. But we could certainly do that through an environmental lens. So if you have an interest in helping me shape what that next year should look like, I would love to chat with you about that.
Okay, sure.
And we got Mehmet and other people on the call who are very strong environmental professionals, you know, that would work out well.
I want to address one of the comments that's in the chat about being on board with bridging the gap between students and professionals.
Mhm.
The session I attended at GSA was a half-day session. It's 2 sessions for an entire afternoon, and it was all about having the academicians help with the career development of the students. And one of the interesting points was about how students no longer go to a career development center at a university. That's not a resource that they use at all. But yet a lot of the things about how to get an interview, how to make contacts to get that first job, what your CV, resume should look like, etc. None of those things are being addressed in curricula. So Craig Nickel, who is out of the University of British Columbia, put together these sessions, brought in people from ASBOG, from AIPG, from, oh, there were multiple different organizations. And of course, brain fart, can't think of them all. But it was really interesting because the audience was someone who's teaching at a university or a college and trying to get them to understand what are all the things that could be included in talking to students about becoming professional geologists, and also sharing information that here's how you do it. So he is going, Craig Nickel, who was the professor from UC British Columbia, is trying to put together a website where university professors can go and basically see, here's the agenda of the things that you should be talking about. Here are links to whether it's a video, a document, whatever, to actually incorporate this into your curricula. And it tied in very much with what we're trying to do within AIPG also, and our incoming early career professional already is starting to plan a series of webinars over very similar topics. And the idea is actually that we could take some of those webinars and provide those to the initiative under GSA, that here's the video that talks about, you know, what I do in my day-to-day life as a geologist. Here's the video that talks about how to do a CV. Here's the video that talks about how to interview your employer, your prospective employer. And here's also what they're going to ask you. So I'm very excited to see that happening, and we hope to have the first seminar in February. So stay tuned for that.
Oh, and hey, Don, while I'm thinking about it, we had talked back and forth via email about the critical needs document that AGI works on
Right now.
for each presidential. It's really basically for an election cycle. And they're looking for an AIPG representative. This document kind of outlines the critical needs that are directly and tangentially related to geosciences, sort of at a national level. I don't have a ton of information just yet. I did go back through all of my emails and I think we got missed on the initial emails, the only thing I can find out. But we've been contacted to ask if someone would be interested in serving. So if you would like more information about service on the AGI Critical Needs Group, email me directly. I'm going to drop my email in the chat right now so that you have it. And you can let me know that you're interested. And I'll reach back out to you and I'll make sure that Dawn and Matt are included on those emails so they know kind of who might be in the mix. Is that okay, everyone? You think so, Dawn? Yeah.
Yeah,
All right.
yes, that's great. We definitely would like volunteers who would like to be on that committee. And speaking of an ask, if anyone would like to nominate someone for an award or for a future officer to be on a committee chair or be on a committee, now is the time of year that we're gathering all those nominations, and the nominations will then be presented to our executive board at the upcoming meeting in February, at the beginning of February. It's going to be in Tucson. That always, our executive board meetings are always open to our members unless there is a special session where we go into executive session only. Otherwise, you are welcome to attend in person in Tucson. It's going to be February 4th, I believe, all day in downtown Tucson. And we'll also have a online option if people want to join via Zoom. This is going to be during the time of the Gem and Mineral Show, which is about 3 weeks of literally mind-boggling, world-class gems, fossils, minerals, you name it. People from all over the world come to Tucson, and it's a great opportunity to be in Tucson and see lots and lots of geologists and fun stuff. And come to an AIPG executive board meeting. And we're going to go to a nice Mexican restaurant, of course, and all that sort of stuff. So there's your open invitation. But going back to the first thing, don't forget that we do have quite a few honors that we give people, whether it's Section Leadership Award, service to the public, service to AIPG. Please take a look at our website, see what the qualifications are to be a nominee, and then be sure to send in an application when you want to nominate someone. Am I forgetting anything else that we should be announcing?
I don't think so. I think that's pretty good. I was just taking a look at some of my notes. I think we covered most everything that I wanted to cover. So if we're a few minutes short, I think that'll be okay.
No, that's the reward for here's some time back in your day.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone so much for joining us today. It is fabulous to have seen so many people on the call today. I really appreciate your time. Wish everybody a very safe and happy Thanksgiving holiday. And don't forget, we have another Lunch and Earn coming up in about a week.
About a week.
So enjoy
Okay.
your time with family and friends over the holiday, everyone.
All righty.
Thank
See
you.
everyone later. Happy
Thank you all
holidays.
very much.
Happy holidays.
Thanksgiving.
Happy
Bye, everyone.
Thanksgiving.
Bye.
Take care.
Right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.